Recording. There we go. All right, now you got it. Thompson Place.
Yes.
All right, Thompson Place in Nashville. Matter of fact, what I think might be cool, John, do you want to tell them about Thompson Place as I scroll here? I'll give you the floor since you actually toured the asset, and we'll go over the OM together, and then we'll jump into the underwriting.
Sure. Thompson Place here in Nashville, 84 unit apartment building. Looks great in the pictures. It's very close to Nashville Airport. It's right in between downtown, like Broadway Street, Nashville, if anybody's been here, and the airport. If you look on the map, it looks like a great location. It's probably in the path of progress, if you're familiar with that. So, it's definitely ripe to be, spruced up over the next couple of years, directly across the street from an elementary school, which I love. Yeah, you can see the map there. So, I mean, it's literally, you could take this street that it's on all the way into downtown, the heart of Nashville, Bridgestone Arena, you name it. And then, as you can see, you're 3 minutes from the airport. As you see from the pictures, there's a pool, so it looks like there might be an opportunity maybe to reposition it. But it also was July 12th when we went and visited it, and the pool cover was still on. So, nervous to see what's underneath there. And I've never done this before, so I'm going to stop there, Josh, and let you kind of run through.
Okay. Yeah. So when you toured it, did you actually get to go in any units? Curious.
Yeah. Yep. So they had 3 model units and 3 units that were being basically given for free to the maintenance folks. They have 3 on-staff maintenance people that they just let live there for free.
Wow.
So we saw the model units, we'll call them.
So you saw the nicest units, the ones they wanted.
They were not nice. There's broken glass everywhere. Yeah.
You said 3 maintenance people, and this is like 84 units. Is that what you said?
I know. I'm like,
so if they have 3 maintenance people for 84 units, that seems like a lot. So I assume there's a lot of issues that they have to deal with on a regular basis.
And it wasn't very well maintained either, so I don't know what they were doing.
That's what that tells me. There's a lot of issues that they're having to deal with on a consistent basis. When was this built? Does it say?
1971 or 73.
73.
And we pulled in. It's 3 or 4 separate buildings, and one of them just had like a huge blue tarp over the roof. So, among the other issues, it's a heavy lift value add.
What did they want for the deal?
$11,500,000.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Like 50% of that is what I underwrote, making any kind of sense.
That's where we were at too.
I don't even know if I had that level of CapEx in there. I don't know. We'll look at it in a second. Was it central AC or was it everything a window unit?
Everything is window or got its own central AC. So there's like 50 AC units outside on the ground floor.
Oh, okay.
So
as we keep
one of the model
scrolling,
units.
this one right here, yeah, the one we just saw. Yeah, and it doesn't even look that nice, honestly. I mean, look at that. What is happening? And this looks dusty and like it got painted over. Like no one cared. No one cared
That's
about.
100% overspray.
Oh, there you go. You're right.
I've been through it, man. I've seen it so many times. Trust me, man.
That's what it looked
The
like.
worst part is over the brand new LVP.
I know, and it's everywhere.
It's a fucking idiot. They probably hired some, Smosh Joe from the gas station to paint it. They didn't cover it properly. They didn't care. They just went and because they were cheap,
Yep, sounds about right. What I see here immediately, just looking at like the whatever this is, supposed to be curtains,
That's
blinds,
the
or
amenities
something.
building.
It looks like dog crap. And we've got siding jacked up here, and I'm curious to know how old the AC units are on the top. You said there's a tarp on one of the buildings. the fact that the pool isn't being used, they have no furniture out here. Yeah, they probably just wanted to fill this in with concrete, but didn't have the budget to do so. So they put this little tarp over it and we're like, no one's going to use it. Oh, well, it's
They
an
said it's
eyesore.
operational, but the owner has it covered for insurance purposes. But I said, fill it in and put a playground there.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure the area might be ripe. I don't know a lot about the area, but it might be ripe for actually having a pool there. Like you may be able to get a legitimate premium if you were to bring this pool up and running. Add some nice furniture out there. Fence doesn't look horrible. Anyway.
Put a slide in there.
Yeah. Oh, wait, a pool. Wait, what? A slide to go in the pool you're talking about? I guess there was an elementary school right across the street. I don't know. That seems like a hazard. I've never seen that before in a multifamily pool. 84 units, 789 average unit rent. Let's see, we've got 24 studios, 420 square feet, 5211s, 822s, going all the way up to 961 square feet. They're saying we can get significantly more in rent. I mean, do you think this is the case? Oh, they're saying renovated units could get even higher. How much are the renovations? What did it look like it
How
needed
much
in
are the
renovations,
renovations?
John?
About $2 million.
For just the interiors is what you guys came up with?
No, that's everything. That's exterior, landscaping,
Okay.
maybe 1.5. One of
You're
the
like-
things we thought was maybe just take one of the 3 buildings, kind of prove the concept in 6 of the units or something, and then try and sell it off.
Okay, so don't do the full value add. Just be the guy that goes in and proves what's possible and then charge year one pro forma price to the current seller. That could have worked in the last 2 or 3 years. I don't think that would work now. With where rates and pricing and everything else is, I think that buying the value of work that you're going to have to put in, those days I think are gone. I think we're now seeing folks are only going to buy what they believe it's worth to be at that moment in time, and then doing their value add or whatever it is they're looking to do to the asset, which again is what's going to come with the rising cap rates that we're seeing. And the cap rate spread specifically over the A, B, and C class assets. Whereas over the last 2 to 3 years, from a cap rate perspective, it didn't matter what you were looking at, you're buying at a 4 cap. Literally. A class, B class, C class, it's 4 cap in almost any market. Unless it's really hot market, then it may even been less. So what I think is going to happen over the next 6 to 12 months is we're going to see the B and C class assets decompress back to their pre-COVID numbers. And maybe they won't go all the way to pre-COVID, but it won't be 4% for B class assets anymore. It'll be closer to 5 or 6. And then for C, I think it'll decompress even further back to 7 or 8 where it was, which is going to bring more opportunity on the buy side, obviously, with lower pricing on those assets, specifically for value add type deals. But it's going to put some people in a hurt locker on the sell side that maybe bought at a 4 cap, and then now it's a couple of years later and they're going to be forced to sell at a 8 cap if they are forced to sell, or if they can do some kind of refi. I'm sure they might do that. Or I definitely think creative financing is going to be another very big piece to what we're going to see over the next 6 to 12 months in terms of how to actually get deals done, whether it's assuming a loan, whether it's subject to, whether it's owner financing, a short sale. I mean, there's going to be any number of different things that you could do to actually get the deal closed from a creative financing perspective, just because that's what it's going to take. Specifically now, like literally right now, just last week, I had like 3 or 4 deals that broker sent me, and they all said that the seller was willing to do owner financing. Of course, none of them ended up penciling out, but it was like, it's here. Like the creative financing is here because sellers still want the price that they thought they could get, or they think that they can get now, that they could have gotten if they sold over the last 2 or so years. And so in order to try to get that price, they're willing to get creative and hold the note, which then makes the interest rate creative. And then everything's negotiable at that point because you're just negotiating with the seller and not a bank. But anyway, so operating statement, we'll go over this. when we get into the underwriting, they had all their assumptions there. We get to see the building a little bit more, some rent comparables. I just basically took the rents that they thought that we were going to achieve. Wherever that was, somewhere. And I just brought those over to where they were saying we're going to get. So let's jump into this. Thompson Place. Y'all need me to zoom in?
Yes.
Please. Perfect.
They good? All right. So basically I was coming in at 6 million-ish to be what I felt like to be a purchase price that was going to make sense for this deal. So they're wanting 11.5. Basically at half of that. I just don't think that if we did it at 11, even 11, it's not even 11.5. Look at our returns, guys. We got a 6% ROI over the course of, and this is 10 years too. This is over a 10-year time frame, fellas. This is not 5 years. 6% ROI. So it just doesn't make sense, right? And we're about to dive into why it doesn't make sense. So at 6 million, 84 units, I'm estimating the down payment could be roughly around 25%. We're looking at a 75% LTV. We may need less leverage to satisfy the debt service coverage ratio. However, it looks like if we're able to buy at 6 with the assumptions that we have at least that 1.2, 1.3 DSCR requirement here, debt coverage ratio down at the bottom. So it looks like we'd be good with the 25% at this particular purchase price. Now, I gave the standard rule of thumb of 10% of asking purchase price. So that was when I had at 11 million here, which brought me to 1.1. That's about 13 a door. And John, from what you were saying, you thought it needed 2 million of CapEx. So this may not even be conservative enough based on where you're saying may need to be happening. So at 2 million, what is that a door? 2 million, divide that by 84. That's 23,000 a door. That's quite a lot, but we'll put that there anyway, just to see what we come up with. Because now the debt service coverage ratio is still going to be the same, but now our actual equity are like, we've diluted the equity significantly since we've added such higher level of equity to the deal from a CapEx perspective. So of course, then it auto populates what our estimated closing costs are. Total acquisition costs 8.1. Their average monthly rent currently at $789. That was based on the numbers that they currently had with the studio, the 1.1 and the 2.2s, and they thought we could bring it to 9, 980, and 12, which brought us to 978. Which then I put in our projected column here, 978 for gross potential income. I estimated us to be about an 8% vacancy, 2% loss to lease. The marketing package had them at a 94% occupancy level. I think they had like 1% concessions. I just upped it to 2. And so I left it at 2 over here and I upped it to 8 because we're going to have a little higher vacancy, especially when we get in there, because we're probably going to start kicking some tenants out because maybe they're delinquent, or maybe we just want to start doing some unit turns, non-renewing a couple of folks, getting some higher premiums. And so we'll have a little bit higher vacancy there. And I honestly just projected this to be the case over the course of the entire 5-10 year time frame that I had for this particular deal, just because this seems to be the industry standard when it comes to C-class assets specifically, being about an 8% vacancy and 2% concessions, loss lease, bad debt there. Then
so the call this a C class, or would you call this like a D class? Because I mean, it seems like it's definitely a heavy lift.
So I think it's in a C class area. That's what I think.
I would agree. B minus
but
C class area, but it's in
it could be D class now, but I'm not estimating that it's D class now just because I know where we would take it after we acquire it. So I'm looking at it from a C class perspective, knowing the area it's in, knowing where we're going to be able to take the asset from the forced depreciation, and then looking at that versus what our exit strategy would be in terms of exit caps and amenities needed to get the exit and things of that nature. So when it becomes a C class asset, because it's a C class, it's in a C class spot, this would be the average, right? This would be the industry standard. Then the other income here, the 70,445, that came from the OM of this being what they assume to happen. So they think they're going to get 25% of residents have one pet for $300 fee plus $30 a month. Then with the RUBS model, they think they're assuming 90% recapture of the water sewer expense down here at 25,000. Laundry income estimated at $127 a unit. And then the app and late fee income assumes 38 vacant units a year with $150 application income each, assumes 15% units pay $100 late fee each month. Now, honestly, when I'm assuming other income, I do not include application fees or late fees because most of the time the property manager gets that anyway. So if you don't own the property management company, this is a moot point for you. The only reason I left it in there was just for sake of conversation so that I could tell you guys why I don't normally include that in there, but leave it in there anyway, just for the sake of analyzing this particular deal. So then real estate taxes, I left it 4506. I may have changed it in the P&L. Yeah, year 3, I changed it because year 3 is when it gets reassessed, which year 3, I think would have been 2024, 2025 for this particular deal. Which is, I think it was every 4 years was the life cycle of reassessment on taxes for this particular county. And so that's why it's not changed here in the immediate in the first year because it hasn't technically been reassessed yet. Then insurance, I gave it a $9,000 additional increase there, probably about another $100 or $150 a unit. Total premium on what I think that would be. Now, granted, this is again what I think it would be. I don't know a whole lot about the insurance market in Nashville, so I would definitely want to do some further digging on that to firm this up. If we were to be able to get under contract from this initial underwriting, that would be something I would firm up in the due diligence process to make sure that my numbers are correct. Landscaping just kept the same. Trash removal, I kept the same. I think it's a little pricey, but I don't know what trash removal typically costs in the area. I know in our area, for an 84 unit property, it may cost us $8,000, $8,500. And so it's almost double here, but I know Nashville is a more expensive market. So maybe that's average for the area. But again, that would be something I would look into. For the electric, they said they didn't have any gas lines on the property. So that's why that was $0 for electric. They said they charged everything back to the tenant, which makes sense, but we're still going to have an electric bill because we've still got an office. We've still got common space. We've still got amenities areas. We've still got these different things, and they didn't include that in the OM. So that would be something I would dig deeper into after getting the financials on the particular deal. If we were to be able to pursue, right? If we were to be able to find out that this was a deal they were willing to accept our offer on and we were moving forward. Water and sewer I kept the same. They didn't say that they had any legal. I, however, feel like we probably will have some legal with where this property's at. We probably will have a couple of turnovers there, evictions, maybe a couple of dollars we'll have to give to the attorney to draft those. Management fee, they had no management fee. They just had the payroll. It's $68,000 in payroll. And so what I believe to be the case with this area, just from what I know about property management companies in general, kind of the industry standard, is that it doesn't make any sense how you would be charged, how you would have someone getting paid $68,000 in payroll, but there be $0 management fee. And John, you were saying they had 3 maintenance guys and they're only getting 68,000. It doesn't sound like
there's a leasing agent too.
Exactly. It doesn't sound like it's adding up. So what I would do instead is I would probably eliminate the payroll. It's only 84 units. So my thought process is either we can eliminate payroll, pay a little bit higher of a management fee, probably anywhere between 8 to 10%. So I put it at 9%. And then with that management fee, hopefully get a property management company that's large enough that has an office locally that would be willing to take 1 or 2 guys, designate them as full-time for this property, but they remain on that property manager's payroll. So you would kind of be growing with that property management company. So as they're growing, they're wanting to bring on more employees. They're wanting to get more leasing agents, more maintenance staff. And so I would want to be partnering with them to do a deal where I can just say, hey, I'll pay you a higher than average management fee for you to manage this asset. So you get more than you would have otherwise gotten had we done it vice versa. And I'll allow you to hire internally instead of externally. So instead of having to hire these people just for like, and me pay the payroll, you can have them internally in your payroll so that you can grow your company, and we'll kind of be like meshing together, growing together, scaling in the same market. You know, when we get the next deal, maybe we can do the same thing depending on the size. So that's something we've done before in the past with a property management company, is not had to pay any payroll and just paid a higher than normal management fee to grow with that company. Or we could do it vice versa, and we could go with the industry standard, which is like 3 to 5% management fee, depending on the size of the asset and difficulty of the lift, and then just add payroll in there. So with 80 some odd units with a lift this big, I guess I would think that you would probably need 3 employees. You would probably need 1 leasing agent and potentially 2 maintenance technicians. But we would be doing a lot of CapEx on the front end. So what we might end up doing is just straight away going with 1 leasing agent, 1 maintenance technician, and then having an outside contracting company come in to do all the majority of the CapEx. Because once all the CapEx is done, of course, the intent there is that you have basically a brand new property. Of course, it's not, but you have a newer property that has significantly less issues. There's significantly less maintenance and repairs needed. And if the property is already at 94% occupancy, I know there's not going to be a whole lot of leasing responsibilities or requirements. So just 1 leasing agent should suffice. So that's what I would do. But the way that I underwrote it is just at 9% going with the company. Again, that's something I would dig deeper into as we got closer and closer and potentially move forward with this deal. Repairs and maintenance, I kept the same, 40,000, just because typically what you want to see with a C-class asset is about like 10% of what your total net income is here for the expense line on R&M if it's a C-class asset, if it's an older asset. But knowing that we would be spending $2 million, $1.1 million on CapEx, I was like, if it's basically a brand new property, there shouldn't be that much repairs and maintenance. We should be fixing everything on the front end. So our continued annual R&M shouldn't be as high as it normally would be. So I brought it closer to 5%. General admin, I kept the same. Payroll, I eliminated. We talked about that. Marketing kept the same. And then deposit replacement reserve, I did our 385 a unit, which came out to 32,340. And then I estimated about a 6% interest rate. Granted, it could be lower. I've heard some people getting quoted around 5 to 5.25. So that could be the case. And maybe that's something I should just go ahead and change. So at 5.25, it's much juicier and we could probably pay more. But again, that was with the $2 million as opposed to the 1.1, which changed our returns a little bit because we were in the green at like a 16% IRR. And now we're at 11 because we're bringing in another $900,000 of equity. So honestly, if this number has to go up, this number probably has to go down even further for this particular deal to make sense. Like, let's see what happens if we're at 5 million. Of course, our debt service coverage ratio is great. And now we're closer to 15%. So we'll say 5 million is probably the price we would need to get this asset at. When we go into the summary, the way that I underwrote it again is 1% earnest money. We'll do 2% acquisition fee. Now, it says here that we're buying at an 8.6 cap, which would be great, which obviously we wouldn't technically probably be buying it. And the reason that I'm saying our cap rate at resale would be 7.5, because as I was initially underwriting this, I was underwriting it at the $11 million price, which the $11 million price was like a 3 cap or a 4 cap or something ridiculous. And so, or if you guys remember, the rule of thumb for the exit cap rate is to go up 10 basis points for every year that you hold the asset. So if we're looking at just a 5-year sale and we buy it, say a 4 cap, we would want to estimate that it'll be a 4.5 cap when we go to sell the deal. So what I had estimated was that it would be significantly higher, that around the 7.5, to go back to the conversation we were having about asset class cap rate spreads. This being a C-class asset and us expecting over the next 6 to 12 months and probably the next couple of years as well, cap rates to decompress in C-class the furthest from 4, close to that 7 to 8%. I put it right in the middle at 7.5%. Class C properties are going to start seeing larger cap spreads. And so this would be my new exit cap of what I believe us to be able to either refi for or sell for when it comes time to be utilizing where the cap rates are at versus, what the market is doing. So even though if we were able to buy this deal at $5 million, which would be great, this would be an awesome deal if we could buy it at 5 million, because we're buying it at an 8.6 cap. We've got about a 16% average cash on cash return. Our debt coverage ratio is 2.2. That's insane. We're at a 70-30 split. I had a 7% pref on this one, 2% asset management fee, no capital transaction fee, and we're looking pretty good. I mean, cash flow is good, average annual return, total ROI. It's not a bad deal. So when we jump to our P&L here, we had 3% standard for rent increase, and I did a 5-4-3 step down for where expenses are, which honestly, I feel like it's conservative, but you just never know, because as we know, inflation's at like 9%. So technically I could say this would be 9%, but that 9% is a little bit of a generalized, like it looks at a really big picture and it doesn't look at the really niche things of what we would be utilizing when it comes to expense growth. Like it's not directly looking at insurance costs as being 9% or real estate taxes being 9%. So our rule of thumb that we've kind of utilized is the 5-4-3 step down over the course of the next 3 years, because 3% has always been the rule of thumb in terms of expense growth. But we saw significant growth over the last just 12 months, and I'm sure no one underwrote for that. So it probably hurt a lot of people's pro formas in terms of what they were actually able to give to their investors. So this is what I was estimating. And then we had that 12% increase to take us from 789 to 884, because if you remember, we're trying to hit 978 as our final here. And so we don't technically even get to 978. We have a 12% increase in the second year, 10% in the third year, and we go back to 3%. And this 12 and 10%, they're not actually percentage growths of where I believe rent to be going further over the next couple of years. And it looks confusing, but basically what this is knowing that current market based on the OM. Of course, we would do further digging, but based on the OM, we know current market to be 978. And that's 978 today. So I'm estimating that it's going to take us 3 years just to even get there, or not even, like almost get there. It's going to take 3 years. And then we're going to be at that standard 3% growth. So basically what I'm saying is, if over the course of the next 3 years, we see zero movement in rent, we just plateaus or it drops a little bit, or whatever the case may be, I don't see that actually happening, specifically in a market like Nashville. But if it did, I'm underwriting so conservatively saying that, hey, we're basically estimating that we'll see no real growth in the rental market of Nashville until the 4th year when we get back to 3%. So these growths are specifically talking about rent for where market currently is today, estimating we won't get there until about 3 years. So a 12% growth is 12% based on where we're at today with the 789 going to 884. But it's not technically 12% because market's already there. I'm just putting 12% here to take us up higher on where we are in rent, because we'll have turnovers. We'll have completed the majority of the CapEx, if not all the CapEx. I mean, 12 months is a long time. You could probably complete most everything, if not everything, by that time. You can start turning a lot of the units in terms of getting new tenants in there. And I think you'd be sitting pretty at that time, being about $100 roughly higher on rent, and then a little less than $100 the following year. And then we'll be at that steady 3% growth after that, with again the 8.2, and then not estimating until the second year that we see all of that additional mumbo jumbo that they had over here for our other income, the pet fees, utility buy, bill back, RUBS model, laundry income, app and late fee. Not estimating that we really start trickling that in or getting to where they expect us to be until the second year. And then of course that grows steady at the 3%. Then again, I changed real estate taxes in the third year, because that one, it would be getting reassessed based on the purchase price. And it may even be lower than that because our new purchase price is like 5 million. So it probably would be lower than that. It may be something I can change to, I don't know.
I
Insurance.
actually think they were 69,000.
The taxes were 69,000? Like that's what they pay now?
believe so. Yes.
Really? $68,000 in year one, they were estimating? Okay. All right,
Yeah. Either way, we know it's
that's high. I
very
mean,
far
if
off.
they- right, if they're estimating that, then shoot, that's what I'm estimating. Everything else stayed the same. Obviously, no changes from where we were at. 9%. And then we come down here and the deal looks pretty good. I mean, we got a little bit of a deficiency in the pref, even with our interest only period for the first 2 years. And then after the refi, we had another 12-month interest only period on our new loan. We only got 45,000 that we're not returning in the first year. Second year comes and we make up the pref and we actually start doing 70-30 split on cash flow. And then of course, once the refi hits, all the pref is, it looks like not paid off actually. So if I go to my exit strategies, I'm only returning 65% of our initial investment. That's based on a 5.3% interest rate, 75% LTV. That's at the 7.5 cap. Standard 2.5%, and we're only returning 65%. So honestly, this deal wouldn't make sense for the perpetuity model. So instead, what we might do is we might just shift it to selling it. We might just try to sell it in 5 years. What does that look like? It doesn't look so good. It doesn't look so hot. Having to put $2 million. Let's say we don't have to put 2 million. Let's say it really was 1-1. Now, what does it look like? Okay, it looks much better. So if we can eliminate $900,000 of CapEx, obviously it's going to look a lot better, right? And so again, that would be something we would want to do a serious deep dive in as we're going through due diligence to determine where we think we can get market rents at for what amenities and what things need to be done to the property. But if we buy at this price, now we have no deficiencies in the first year and we're able to return the full 7% and we immediately can do 70-30 splits on cash flow until we sell it in the 5th year and bam, everyone makes double their money. You got 19% IRR. I mean, these are numbers you would see over the last couple of years, right? Or I should say pre-COVID. Technically, you wouldn't see these numbers over the last couple of years, but this is what people were achieving, if not greater, just because of how insane the market was. So when we go to the acquisition tab, we're estimating $10,000 in legal fees. That's creating the LLC, creating the PPM, the syndication docs, about $150 a unit to hire a third-party inspection company to come out and do their full scope inspection on the property. Don't expect there to be any environmental, really don't expect there to be any structural either. Probably about $6,500 doing an appraisal on this level of asset. I have no idea what the lender legal fees are. So this is kind of a rule of thumb, $2,000, $350, 0.5% origination fee, probably with whatever lender you're going to go with. I don't really know what the percentages are for transfer taxes and title policy in the Nashville area. So this is truly just a wag. And then these numbers here are mostly rules of thumb for the remaining closing costs there. But then the real estate taxes, we want 6 months of that. The insurance, we typically want 20% down at closing. And then a cost seg, I expect to be about $8,000 based on the other deal. The other 88 unit I had, that was about $8,000 for ELB to do that cost seg. Again, exit strategy is to sell in year 5. We sell in year 5 to 7.5 cap. We sell at 8.7. Meanwhile, our all-in number was 6.2 total acquisition cost if we buy at 5 million. So not too shabby. Not too shabby at all to be able to return that and then get us to where we need to be. And then this is the return tabs. You guys know we don't really have to go over that because it just talks over the same thing. $100,000 investment, they'll get $114,000 or technically $214,000 over the course of 5-year time frame because they get their capital back plus 114%. So that's it for this deal. Basically, what I found out is that 11.5 million, or what we found out, 11.5 million is probably way too high. 5 million is closer to the price that you could probably do this deal at conservatively. And that's if you're able to only spend 1.1 million on it to get it where it needs to be. So John, I take it that they would not be willing to accept 5 million.
I don't think so. This guy owes $4 million on it,
Oh, he owes 4 million on it.
which is still not bad.
I wonder if you could do a loan assumption on the deal. And I wonder what that would look like. Obviously, you still wouldn't be able to get to 11.5, but if you could do a loan assumption, and then maybe if he could do some seller financing on top of that, like, hey, if you seller finance it and we get some favorable terms, I may be able to pay you more than what you initially thought I was going to be able to. Of course, if the all in numbers make sense, and then you won't have to pay any taxes on it either. Benefit for him is that he no longer has any capital gains because you're going to pay that out to him over the course of however long. It's not going to be one lump sum.
Yeah, he's also got like a 300 unit in Memphis that he's going to sell.
Wow.
So there's some digging still to be done here if it keeps sitting around. But
Okay. Well, I can send this to you if you want, or I'll just add it to the drive for you to use. So that's that one. The other one was Nagadocious. That's what you said. Sounds right. Nagadocious. Nagadocious 3-pack. I don't even know how to say that either. Taliesin, the Californian, and the Russian River. Marcus and Milchap. 3-property portfolio. The first property is 115 units, built 1975, 1986, which leads me to believe there was a phase 1 and phase 2 part of this asset. Either there was phase 1 or phase 2, or it got completely renovated in 1986. And sometimes OMs will say, hey, it was built in a later year, even though it was really built here. And that was just because it got like a full gut remodel. So technically it wasn't rebuilt. It was just remade nice from typically an interior perspective, nothing structural. Which is when I say year built, I think structural. Okay, here's what I have to look at from a structural perspective, roofs and things of that nature. So that may be something I would want to know. Did it actually get, like, was there more built on phase 2, like an additional extra unit? Like maybe they only built 50 units as phase 1, and then they did the other 75 or whatever later in 86 when they had more money and seemed like it was a great spot. I would want to figure that out. But they're 99% occupancy, great spot, rentable square feet, blah, blah, pretty good amenities, pool and sun deck, grilling area. Looks much nicer than the other asset we were just looking at. It looks kind of rustic. Like I'm getting the cabin vibes. Is this a unit or is this the main office?
It looks like the leasing office or the
I'm about to say that
looks like the
nice.
office to me.
Yeah, that looks nice. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a rustic feel here, but it's nice. It's cool. I'm surprised they did all black and then white appliances. Interesting. Not black appliances. Laundry facility. Let's see what else we got. And then they dive deep into the actual unit mix here, which I added or have added when we get into the underwriting. You've got deep in Alpine, Rimrock, Redwood, their names for their different layouts. It's kind of nice that they put the layouts here for you to take a look at. They even had the potential rent of where they thought things could go, potential and current, their operating statement for where they're at, a couple of their notes and pro forma expectations, basically. And this being another property, the Californian, this one's 113 units. Again, 2 different year builds. Trying to figure out what that's all about, but also at 99% occupancy, it's much larger. The other one was like 3 acres. This is 8 acres. So there may even be, because it's like the same unit count. So there may even be a potential, like if there's some empty acreage somewhere, if not, and you're just utilizing all 8 acres, and that's fine. But if there's some empty acreage in here as part of the 8 acres that you would be buying, there could be the possibility for you to build a phase 2 or a phase 3 and build out more new development assets in this acres. Of course, if it's zoned and all that other stuff. It doesn't look like there's any additional spot except right here, but I don't know, it may be too small to even be worthwhile. It's located next to Pecan Acres Parks. That's cool. Located next to a park. That's typically a pretty good natural amenity that you don't have to pay for. Just location of really good outside, secluded, quiet, typically, unless the parks has like baseball games or football games or something really loud. But pretty nice overall. It gives you more detail: exterior brick and wood siding, shingle and Spanish tile on the roof. The County of Nacogdoches. You get a little bit of detail here on the interiors. Nice little pool setup, outlooking the park. That's pretty. Dog park. They give you their floor plans as well. They do the same thing for all of them. Then Russian River Apartments, same thing, built in 1970. It's only 50 units, 99% occupied. We get all these details here. Nice property. Most of these look like they're already pretty much renovated, right? It doesn't look like there's large value add on much of these deals. I mean, there's a little bit. I'm sure maybe from a streamlining expenses perspective, there's a little bit of a value add. Maybe bringing in better management. Maybe, I mean, you saw from where they thought current rents were versus where they believe potential rents to be. They believe there was a spread there, but in terms of actual like CapEx input to get those numbers, I mean, like this is 970 and this is 978. There's not much spread, but 755 and 854, it's a little bit of a spread. Operating statement for that one as well. And then they go down and they go into more rent comparables. And I looked at all that. Basically, we'll just jump into underwriting now. So with the underwriting, you guys can see that now. Did they give you a price that they said that they wanted, Michael?
No.
No. Yeah, it was like call for offers or something. I'm pretty sure it said in there or something. So I can almost guarantee you in Texas, you won't be able to buy 278 units for 66 a door unless you get super creative or the market goes crazy. But that's basically where this deal makes sense based on what I'm looking at. And again, I use this 10% of purchase price rule of thumb from a CapEx perspective because I haven't walked the units. If I actually go and I walk the units and determine, hey, I only need like 300,000 or 400,000. Let's say it's 400,000 that I need for these units. Then maybe that changes the numbers. You know, obviously it changes the numbers. So if I go up on price to say 22 million, what does that do? Still not that great of a deal. But now we're at 79 a door, which probably still doesn't make sense, honestly, for these sellers. So I'll just leave it where I had it for the sake of this conversation. 10% of purchase price, again, estimating 75% loan to value, 25% down payment. Again, debt service cover ratio needs to be around 1.25, 1.2, 1.25, 1.3, 1.25 is just right in the middle. So that's kind of typically the industry standard. And as you see, we don't quite meet that where we're at 1.06. That's estimating at a 5.5% interest rate. So if we can get a better interest rate, then does that change anything for us? It does, but not enough. I need like a 4% interest rate to get where I need to be. 30-year amortization. And then coming down here at where actual rents are currently. So actual rents are at $959. They had 101 beds. They had 125, 2 ones, they had 107, 2 twos, 42, 3 twos, 4. And if you want to get really detailed, you can go back into the OM and you can type all these out like 1-1s. This 1-1's 750 square feet. This 1-1's 900 square feet. So the one that's 900 square feet is probably going to get a little bit more for it. Also, it's in a better location because it's at a different property. So we may be able to get a little more for it. I just didn't want to go that detailed since this is just for educational purposes. 2-1, same thing. And so then we had our current averages averaged out across the 3 properties. And we immediately came over here to our target rent averages of where they believed we were going to be able to take this asset, wherever they had those operating here, the average rent of potential where it could go, averaging all those out across the portfolio, coming up with these numbers, and ultimately 1059. So literally about $100 a month increase across the portfolio. in value there. So we go from being able to bring in almost 3.2 to now we're bringing in 3.5. Coming up to this particular number from 959. So vacancy currently where they were at on the marketing package was, I think, actually closer to even 6% on the marketing package. But with such a big deal, I wasn't really sure again how big the CapEx was going to be. So estimating at a 10% price here, I was estimating we'd be at about like this big of a value add. We're going to be kicking a lot of people out. We're going to be doing a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of moving parts. We're probably going to have a little bit higher of a vacancy in that first year, putting us at that 10% and then 2% here. And then ultimately it would be about 8.2 because just from the age of the assets brought those properties to C class. However, the location itself could be B class. They look pretty nice. So I don't know. But it could be again B class. So this was just my industry rule of thumb here, input, and then other income. This came straight from the marketing package of what they're getting currently. So I had the same thing in our offer if they're already getting that. And then our projected here was adding a RUBS model for 80% chargeback for water and sewer and 100% chargeback for internet service. And so real estate taxes, I left the same and I changed them in a later year. Because again, reassessment of taxes in the area. And then insurance, I basically doubled. Not really sure what insurance is like in that area. There weren't like crazy old properties, but they're still all mostly built in the 70s and 80s. So this could be, this is a WAG because I don't know. I mean, I don't know how close this is to the coast. I don't know what insurance is currently being charged in the area, but from what I know from the properties we're targeting, they're like 2 to 3x on the premiums, based on what they're currently getting. And honestly, I felt like $76,000 over the course of 278 units seemed just extremely cheap. Like, I don't know if they have actual proper coverage for what may be needed for these properties, especially if you're getting ready to spend almost $21 million on the deal. I would want it to definitely be insured properly. So again, this is a WAG, could be less than that. Could be more. I don't know. That's just my placeholder, basically. Landscaping, I kept the exact same. I have no idea unless I get some hard quotes from some landscapers on what that's going to cost. Marketing and advertising, I kept the same. Electric's the same. Gas is going to be the same. Water and sewer and trash was also included in their water sewer, which made no sense to me, but that's what it was. So I added that in there. Water, sewer, trash. So they're currently charging. And then the management fee, they were at 8.2% plus $305,000 a year in payroll. And that seems so absolutely insane to me. I've never heard of a property management company charging over 8% for their management fee and having a ton of folks on payroll across the portfolio. So change that. We eliminated 8.5%, brought it to 3.5%, closer to the industry standard. And then we had our actual employees on payroll because obviously 278 units, you're going to need a handful of employees. This is probably going to cover about 7 to 8 employees, maybe 6, depending on how much we actually need across this particular portfolio, like how close the properties actually are. Because if they're super close, honestly, we could have like maybe a maintenance tech per property and maybe 2 leasing agents, and each leasing agent takes turns like flip-flopping properties if they're super close, or 3 leasing agents or whatever the case is. I don't know. We can figure that out, but that covers about 6 to 8 employees depending on what's needed. The internet bill, y'all, $147,000 for internet. That blew me away. I can't believe they're paying for the internet, first and foremost. That's why I said I'm charging 100% back. They're going to pay for their dadgum internet. I don't know why I would pay for it. I'm not using it. So we would be getting that back in this projected number of other income. And then the deposit replacement reserve was $385 door, bringing us to $107.30 on the deposit here, which brought us to about 64, almost 65% operating expense ratio, which is pretty high. 50% is kind of usually 50 to 55 is kind of on the standard high end for what you could expect to see. I mean, especially for an asset like this. I mean, we saw the pictures. It looked pretty nice. Why does it cost so much money to run? Like, why are they spending so much capital to keep this deal afloat? And so again, but that was with insurance doubling and us changing around the management fee structure, which actually saved us a ton of money. As opposed to paying $274,000, we're paying now $100,000 because they're only getting 3.5%. Oh, and we're not necessarily. What's that?
Wouldn't you remove the internet from the expenses and put it up to the other income if you're going to do the chargeback?
No, because it's still an expense because I'm charging it back to them. So our name is still on the bill and we're still paying it, but we're charging it back to the tenants. So the tenants are paying us. So it's a wash. Like it's $147,000 that we're having to pay, but we're getting it back here in the income level. So it's a wash. But you have to add it here because you're still paying for it. If you didn't add it here, then you think you're going to make more money, but you're not because you're still going to have to pay this. Which
I think
again,
I've made that mistake a few times.
I made that mistake before too, early on, thinking exactly what you're thinking. Like, well, if I'm getting it here, it doesn't have to be here. And then my business partners quickly told me I was an idiot. So it was a good thing too. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, 65% here. But then with a couple of changes that we made, being able to increase the rent up to about that extra $100, that brings us to the 54% number, which again is 50 to 55% kind of being the standard for your operating expense. And that's on the higher end too with this, and this is eventually going to be higher as well. So we'll see what that ends up becoming. But again, 5.5% interest rate, 30-year amortization, going to the summary tab. We are doing a 1% EMD, 1% acquisition fee, and this will be 5.9. B class asset cap rate won't move as much. So if we're buying at a 5.4 cap with where we're at again, and we're estimating, let's say just a 5-year sale on this deal, then it's a pretty decent deal. You don't quite double your money. You're still at least 15% IRR though. At the 5.4, we're estimating that in 5 years, again, 10 basis points every year. We're at the 5.9 now, since it's in a B class area with this particular asset. Could probably potentially be a B class asset if we were to renovate it up to the standards that it needed. And again, with these numbers as well, this number could significantly change everything. If I didn't need to spend $1.85 million on CapEx or need that much in reserves, then I can significantly change my equity in the deal, and I can dilute. Is that it? Yeah, dilute or undilute, I should say, the equity, bringing everyone's shares up more, which would boost returns, obviously. 6.8% average cash on cash. Our debt coverage ratio at 1.4 now, which that's at the year one. So that's after year one when we're estimating here. Go back to the summary tab. We're at a 70-30 split. I did a 6 pref on this deal since it's B class. Typically pays a lesser pref, 2% asset management fee, no capital transaction fee. And it's an okay deal, all in all, especially in today's market. So we were at 959. We're estimating we could get to 1059 or 1063. Coming over here, we get to 1064. This one, we actually did a 6543 step down, just being a little extra conservative in a really hot Texas market. I don't really know, again, what the expenses are actually going to be in that area. That could be something that I could dive deeper into, or I could just go back and say it'll probably be closer to a 543, but just leaving it 6543 here. And then we only had that 111% jump from our 959 to our 1064, and then we stayed at that 3%. So it really isn't much of a actual value add deal. So like I'm putting a lot of capital into it and I'm really not going to get that much out based on what at least the OM is telling me. So if that's the case, I would look at how much I would need to invest versus where I'm actually going to be taking the deal here at this number. And I would probably immediately think, hey, this isn't necessarily a deal we want to target, just knowing we're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of money on this deal. And there's just not that much upside just from a rent perspective alone. Like CapEx needed to rent being able to be acquired, the spread just ain't there. So is it really going to be worth our time? Probably not. And as a first time investor, I'll tell you, 278 units isn't something you're going to want to do as your first deal. We did 42 units on our first deal, and it was a behemoth. It felt like at the time to tackle and understand and go through that learning curve. But we made it happen, of course. But anyway, so when we go to other income, we estimate we were getting that 51,000 in the first year that they were already getting, and then the 278 in the second year. 8.2 across the board there. Real estate taxes going up at the increased percentage. Insurance going up, same rate. Contract services, basically none of this changes from where we were at on our offer tab. Yeah. So then we come down here and we do have a deficiency. Even at our 6 prep, we got a deficiency in the first year, and that's with 2 years IO, and we're not doing a refi anymore. So we're just selling in the 5th year with the way that we've underwritten this particular one. So there wouldn't be any cash flows because of the deficiency, but in the second year, there's starting to be some cash flows. And then every year thereafter, after being able to have the capacity to pay the pref every year from our cash flow available for distribution year over year here. And again, this number being higher because we've got increased rent here and we're still not paying any interest. So then this number being lower because, yeah, we've gone a little bit higher in rent, but now we're also having to pay principal and interest. And so it's bringing this number down from where it was, which is why you see it go up and back down and then back up. A little confusing sometimes, but you can really play with the interest only to determine if that's something you actually want to do. Sometimes doing interest only doesn't behoove you because not being able to pay any principal down when you get to the sale, if you're looking to just sell in a couple of years, sometimes hurts your equity position, depending on how much forced appreciation you can have. So like here, we're estimating a 93% total ROI. Let's see what it changes to if we completely eliminate IO, if it changes to anything. Maybe it'll make it worse. I don't know. We're about to see. So now the deficiency is much more, right? So we don't have the IO anymore. So we're deficient practically every year, which is really the reason I had the 2 years IO in the first place, was because I wanted to be able to make sure that we were able to get some cash flow to our investors to make them happy over the course of these first couple of years, or all 5 years really, until we get to the sale. I don't want it to be like, hey, you're not going to get your pref paid until the 5th year. Who's excited about that? Not much of anyone. So I think we were at what? Were we at 92%? I forgot already. Now we're at 94%. So the ROI went up just a little bit from equity pay down. But our cash flow is much worse. So honestly, for this particular deal, if I was to target it, I would love to get 24 months IO, because then I can keep investors happy from a pref payment perspective. And I only go, actually, it's like 1% or less than 1%. And I only change my ROI by like 1%. So this isn't really going to be a deciding factor of yes or no, technically, from an investor perspective, if they were to look at this number versus the 94% directly in connection with preferred return numbers. I much prefer, and I think most investors might prefer, hey, if you're telling me you're going to pay me a 6 pref, I'd like my 6 pref. Like if there's a deficiency in the first year, that's fine, especially knowing it's going to be a value add deal. But if you're telling me there's going to be, like, if we're conservatively underwriting, there's going to be a deficiency every single year, no, pass, not interested. And so similar assumptions here for what we were looking at, a little bit more expensive for the appraisal because we're looking at 3 different properties. 0.5% origination fee. Again, I didn't know where the numbers were in Texas for transfer taxes and title policy. And then 6 months of taxes, 20% down on the insurance piece, and the cost segregation study being a little bit more expensive because it's 3 properties as well. And then our exit strategy was just to sell in 5 years with our 50 basis points higher on the cap rate. Whereas we're initially buying at a 8.5. When we sell in 5 years, looks like we'll be able to sell at 27 million. So our all-in purchase was almost 21, and we're selling it almost 28. So we're making a decent spread there, as seen in the summary with the returns here. And the return tab, you guys already understand. So yeah, that's this deal. Basically, you're looking at about 18 and a half. If all these assumptions are correct, which I don't believe that they would be, honestly. Some of these are just wags just because I don't fully understand the market. But this is where I would expect to come in, looking to do this deal strictly as a market conventional deal, where you're getting a loan from a bank. If you're getting get a little bit more creative, add some creative financing, maybe a loan assumption in there. Maybe you assume one of the loans on one of the properties and you owner finance another loan on another one of the properties, and you conventionally do the loan on another one of the properties. Like when you start to get into portfolio buys, there typically is a lot more creativity because sometimes you're dealing with different sellers. Some brokers will actually put together 2 or 3 different sellers together and create their portfolio and have 2, 3, 4 properties. And so you're dealing with different sellers that'll be interested in different things. And you don't know that until you ask. But I will say most of the time when you're looking at a portfolio, it's typically the one seller that owns the whole portfolio. And even if that is the case, there's still a little bit more creativity because every property that this guy owns, he'll be in a different financial position with. And he may have a different financial goal to get out of that particular deal, which again is where the creativity comes into play. But yeah, that's this deal. I'll add this deal and the other deal and the OMs into the shared drive that we have, for you guys to take a look at, review, mess around with, comprehend why the numbers are what they are. And then I encourage you guys to do your own underwriting, right? So between now and Thursday, if you guys have deals that you're looking at, other outside deals, or if you just want to go to Crexy or LoopNet or go to Cushman and Wakefield or go to Marcus and Millichap or go to svn.com and try to see what their current listings are, and just specifically a listing, of course, in your target market, right? You want to make sure you're at least analyzing deals in your target market because we want to be really niching down into where you're going to be buying, so that as you're underwriting, you're getting a greater understanding for that market. Like the 2 deals I just underwrote today, we're not in the Nashville market other than the Franklin deal that we have, but that's not even multifamily. And the only deal I'm in Texas is Austin. And so I'm sure Nacogdoches is a completely different market than Austin. So I didn't really have a deep understanding of how to underwrite those. Whereas the deals that are in my target markets, I can underwrite in like 10 minutes because I already know all the rules of thumb. I already know where I can expect most, if not all, of the financials to fall, from like appraisal perspectives, cap rates, where property managers are going to charge, like property management companies that we partner with, where payroll needs to be, right? Competitive payroll in the area for high quality individuals, how much it's going to cost to do CapEx, depending on what CapEx we need to do, which amenities we actually need to input into this property based on surrounding properties that I already know or own, and like what amenities we have in those areas. Like I already know all those things. So when I get a deal, it's super quick and easy for me to just be wham, bam, dump some numbers in there and I've underwrote it and know if it makes sense. So that's what we're building to get you guys to be able to do without, of course, actually having closed a deal yet, just being able to underwrite a ton of deals and have that knowledge base. Being able to underwrite quicker and quicker and quicker is going to, of course, benefit you drastically from a time management perspective, but also your ability to get back with the brokers very quickly. Like if I get back to a broker in like 30 minutes after he sends me a deal, he's like blown away. Like, holy cow, thanks for getting back to me so quick. Sorry, it didn't work out. I'll keep sending you stuff. Sometimes it's as quick as that. Sometimes they want to actually get on the phone. They're like, hey, you're like $5-10 million off from the asking price. Would you like to set up a call? Would you like to jump on the phone? Would you want to send me your underwriting so that I could take a look at it? I just want to see if there's any disconnect here. And then of course there's never a disconnect other than the seller's just asking too much. So we get on in the call and I'm like, here's why I'm coming up with what I'm coming up with. And here's why these prices are where they are. And more often than not, I'm educating the broker because I'm like, here's where we're seeing interest rate premiums in the area that this asset's in. And so that's why I'm 2Xing the premium. And he's like, oh, really? Oh, man, that's a lot. I'm like, exactly. So that's why my basis is going to be much different than his because he already owns it. He's already in his insurance policy that maybe he got last year before premiums double. So when he goes to renew, he's going to get a nice slap to the face. But if he's looking to sell before then, I'm getting that slap to the face. And so I need to underwrite for what that's going to look like. And that's why I've got this number in here. So just like explaining those things to them, they're like, oh, wow, really? And so then sometimes they're able to go back to the seller and negotiate why the price should be a little lower. But again, I think we're in this weird hand grenade market where the pin's been pulled and like someone threw the grenade, the Fed threw the grenade with interest rates rising, and sellers are just like, nah, I'm not lower in price yet. They still think, because technically cap rates are still low. They haven't gone up with interest rates. So I think it's going to take a couple more months before we really start to see a lot of movement from a cap rate perspective and a valuation perspective, which is going to be perfect timing for us, right? For all of us in here over the next 6 to 12 months, I think there really is going to be a lot of new opportunity across the board, specifically in the B and C class assets with those cap rate spreads. But across the board in terms of like markets, like across the US, that's going to be the shift that we see due to lending. And all of these different creative financing opportunities that I'm mentioning to you guys, we'll dive deeper into when we start diving deeper into how to actually craft an offer, how to write an offer, the negotiation tactics. And that is what we could start potentially utilizing, which is really awesome because I've known these creative strategies for like ever now, and I hadn't really been able to use them because everything's best and final, like always. Or they just want a conventional deal. So now with creativity coming back into play, it's going to give us, the new guys, a lot more opportunity to jump into opportunities, especially if we have the knowledge base to know how to strategically place these ideas and thoughts into sellers' heads with something like seller financing. Like, hey, if we do seller financing, I can actually pay you more than you're asking for, or I can pay you closer to what you're asking for, and you don't have to worry about having to pay taxes on it. And then I'm going to renovate your property. I'm going to make it look nice and beautiful. And if I default, you get to keep the asset. You get this new, nice, beautiful property that you spent no dollars in, no time. I've been paying you the entire time. Maybe I haven't. And so that's why I've defaulted. But either way, you're now going to get this nice property. And then you can do whatever you want with it. You can sell it later and try to sell it again. And it'll be much nicer and worth more. And so there's different, again, creative strategies we'll be able to utilize that I think are really going to benefit us in the long run. Any questions before we jump off?
Hey, just quick question, Josh. So where we are right now in the course, our main goal is to building those broker relationships. That's kind of where we are.
So it's a mix. For you, your primary goal is going to be pick your target market. It's going to be first and foremost, if you haven't already. And once you pick the target market, when you go back and you listen to the videos and hear the homework for those videos, you'll build that detailed market analysis for that market so that not only you will have a deeper understanding of the market, but you'll be able to utilize the same sheet to send out to other investors or brokers or whoever to have, so that everyone has a deeper understanding of the market that you're targeting and why you're targeting that market. And then that'll also help you craft your buy box, what you're actually looking to buy, what you want your goal to be over the next 12 months when you go to close a deal, as we're targeting closing a deal. And so once you've got a little bit of a deeper understanding on the market, the buy box, then it'll be a twofold parallel path to underwriting and broker relationships. So we're going now over underwriting. We're going to continue to go over underwriting probably for the next couple of weeks. Make sure we get a really deep understanding of how that works. And I definitely want you guys also, when we're not on the calls, to be utilizing the videos or what you've learned in the videos or things that I put in the Google Drives to then take and go either continue to underwrite that deal and maybe wrap your head around why that deal is the way that it is, and then utilize those same rules of thumbs and those same principles and go look for your own deals to underwrite. Again, even if it's a really crappy deal, like if it's LoopNet or Crexy and you know it's not going to pencil, just the repetition, the practice there is going to be phenomenal. It was phenomenal for me. I underwrote probably 500, 700 deals before we finally closed our first one. And I hope that's not the case for you guys. I hope we're not underwriting that many deals, but I definitely had a lot of repetition just because I felt like I needed the repetition. And not only that, but also no deals were penciling. Back when I was trying to get into the business, not a lot of things were making a lot of sense because creativity wasn't an option back then. Whereas now it's going to start becoming one, and the little guy is going to have a much greater opportunity to jump in. So a little bit of a tangent, but basically, yes, target market, underwriting deals, underwriting your own deals, the deals that we have in here, reviewing those, then underwriting your own, practicing doing that. And then if you guys underwrite a deal and you want me to like take a look at it, like we don't have to wait till the next call for you to get an answer, right, to a question that you have about a deal that you're underwriting or something you're not understanding. Like shoot me an email, shoot me the analyzer. I'll take a look at it. I'll tell you what's going on with it, send it back to you, and maybe we'll use it as a case study on the next call, or maybe it'll just be between you and I, just helping you out, figure deeper more about the underwriting piece of it all. And then of course, parallel paths with brokers. So I know that sounds like a lot. So first thing you're going to need to do, since we're doing it in order specifically for you, Ahmed, is going to be the target market. So do that first, figure out your market, figure out your buy box, do the detailed analysis. After you do that, then you'll be diving deeper into underwriting. And when you get a little bit of a deeper understanding about underwriting, then you can start working those parallel paths, continuing to sharpen your axe on underwriting, because we're going to be sharpening our axe on underwriting from now until eternity. And so specifically over the next 12 months, we'll just continue sharpening that axe. And then over the next couple of weeks, we'll be working the parallel path with brokers to start getting some fresh leads, building that lead gen, getting new opportunities in front of us that we can underwrite. And so that we're also like building the relationship with those brokers so that eventually we'll start getting some of those really juicy opportunities the next couple of months. Does that make sense?
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Sweet. Any other questions? Sweet. We had a couple of people drop off. Maybe they got busy. I don't know. Monday night. I see who my real go-getters are. No, I'm just kidding. They must have got busy. I'll stop the recording.